Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Emma, or Amarillo Art as I am more well known on social media. So if you've been following me for very long, you know I tend to stick to traditional art most of the time, but I have dabbled a bit in digital art throughout the years. I just prefer traditional, it's more relaxing to me and I'm just better at it. Part of the reason that I have always preferred traditional is I don't like the way that it feels drawing on a screen, especially like iPads or I have a Surface Pro. I just don't like the feeling of the glass and the pen. However, some of the drawing monitors that I have been testing recently feel different than drawing on glass. So today I will be reviewing the Huion Kamvas 16 Gen 3, which they were kind enough to send me. And if you saw my short video a while back with the windbreaker characters, that was drawn on this tablet. So today I'm just going to be talking about my experiences with this tablet as I venture into digital and sort of attempt it again. Because traditional, at this point, I have an idea how it's going to turn out in the end. I have a vision for the actual finished product. With digital art, I just keep adding layers at this point and hope for the best. I really have no idea what it's going to look like at the end. I'm just as surprised as anyone else when they see the final result. So we're gonna go on this journey together and see what it ends up looking like at the end because I really don't know. And so let's get into the video. So to get the tablet working, it has a power cable and a display cable. Both are USB-C ports on the side of the tablet, on the right side of the tablet, and you just plug one straight into the wall. Mine came with a 3-in-1 cable, so depending on what kind of power source you want to use, you can switch it out. But the plug that goes into your computer is the USB-C. Then it just plugs straight into the USB-C port on my laptop, and then I can have mirror displays or set it up however you want to set it up. So for this whole video, I will be using my Surface Pro. That's the only computer that I have. I plugged the Huion tablet into my Surface Pro, and I have had a lot of issues with my Surface Pro, especially with Adobe programs. Since they're so heavy, they tend to kind of overload my computer. They make it freeze, they make it crash. There's certain things that it just can't do. So I was a little nervous plugging it into the secondary monitor and having it run kind of both screens at the same time, that it would really overload my computer. Plus it's about 5 years old at this point, 4 or 5 years old. So it's struggling a little, but I didn't actually have any problems. I feel that it shows that the tablet can run on any computer if I can run it through my Surface Pro, because like I said, my Surface Pro can't run a lot of stuff at the same time and it's not super powerful. So if it can run through my Surface Pro, it can probably run through most computers. Initially, I did have some issues with the syncing of the two screens. I have it set up so that my computer screen has one display and then my tablet has a secondary display, and to set it up that way on a Windows computer like I have, you just go into the display settings of your computer and set it up to extend these displays on the little screen option so it has a number 1 screen and a number 2 screen. There are other ways to set it up. You can have it only show on one or the other screen, or you can have it basically duplicate what's on your regular computer screen. I like having 2 separate screens, just especially for editing, or I can have references on one screen and then the drawing on the other screen, so I prefer to have screen 1 and screen 2 being the drawing tablet. Also, I did have some issues if I had it set on the mirroring option where it was the exact same as my computer screen. The pen didn't align correctly, which wasn't just this tablet. I've had that issue with other tablets. I think it's a Windows issue, not an issue with the tablet. So I definitely suggest doing the extend these display option on Windows computer to avoid any kind of shenanigans with the pen alignment. So after I got that set up, I did have some issues initially getting everything to run smoothly. So I use Photoshop, and Photoshop, being an Adobe program, is pretty heavy. I've always had issues with lagging and stuff on my Surface Pro, so I was a little nervous because you really can't have it lagging when you're drawing, or else it kind of screws it up and makes it really difficult to draw. So right off the bat, I was having a lot of lagging and I was like, uh-oh, like this is gonna be a problem. But I ended up figuring it out. I think I deleted and reinstalled the drivers, because you do have to install some drivers from the Huion website, which is pretty easy to do. And that didn't really fix the issue. But then I realized, specifically on the Surface Pro, there is an option on the settings of the Huion program that you download when you download the drivers, and it is the Enable Windows Ink. You have to uncheck the box. If you have it checked, it will not work correctly with the Surface Pro. It took me a while to figure that out because I was like really thinking I was gonna have issues getting it to sync up with my computer, and I was like, I can't use this because it's lagging and it's not drawing where I'm putting the cursor, and I was having all kinds of issues. And I unclicked the Enable Windows Windows ink, and it fixed it. So if you have a Surface Pro, definitely leave that unchecked. I don't know if that's specifically an issue with the Surface Pro, and again, I think that's more of a Windows issue than an actual issue with the Huion tablet. So once you have everything downloaded and you have it running smoothly, troubleshooting any issues, you can go into the pen display option on the Huion program that you downloaded when you downloaded the drivers, and you can customize all the keys. So this particular tablet has 2 scrolling wheels and 6 programmable buttons, and then the power switch. You can change the orientation on this tablet, so you can make it face whatever direction you prefer. So if you're left-handed, you can change the orientation so the buttons are on the opposite side, but being right-handed, I left it so that the buttons were all on the left side, so I could adjust the buttons with my hand and draw with my right hand. Now, the buttons are really going to save you a lot of time when it comes to all the shortcuts, especially with Photoshop. I don't really have any experience with any other drawing programs. I assume they have similar shortcuts to Photoshop, but I don't know any of them. But with Photoshop, like, shortcuts are a very large part of it, and if you don't know them, you waste a lot of time trying to find things and figure things out through the menus. So the buttons were really great to save a lot of time. So for the scroll wheels, they have a middle button that you push, and then once you push it, 3 other options come up, and you can switch between those 3 options to control what the scroll wheel does. So for example, I have mine set up to do brush size, opacity, and rotate canvas for the top scroll wheel. And for the bottom scroll wheel, because you get another 3 options for that one as well, I have zoom, rotate, scroll up, and down. And it's very customizable. You can go in and add different things. You don't have to go with those options if you have other specific things that you prefer. Those are just the shortcuts that I find easiest for what I do on Photoshop. So for the other buttons, you can program them to be any keyboard shortcut, or you can do like a right click. It's very customizable, a lot of options there. No complaints on that front. I have mine set up for B, brush tool, E, eraser, Alt, Control S, save, and Control Z and Control Shift Z, which is undo and redo. So those are the buttons that I use the most, but if I wanted to change out any of the keys, I could. And again, the way to do that is you just go into the app and then click the button and then go in and change the setting. So it's pretty easy to do, pretty easy to set up. Next is the pen. So I actually was not a huge fan of this pen at first because it's quite thick at the bottom, and I'm used to traditional tiny little mechanical pencil pens. But once I got used to it, I actually quite like it. The grip is very smooth and feels very nice on the hand, and I do like all the buttons. I just kept accidentally pushing the buttons while I was drawing, so as long as I kind of spun it so that the buttons were facing the bottom or facing away from my fingers, then I ended up getting used to it, and I didn't have any issues with it. So now I don't have any issues with the pen, and I do really like it. It also came with a little pen holder, which was nice. It's not like essential or anything, but it was kind of a nice little detail. And on the bottom of the pen holder, there's a little hole that you can remove the nibs with if you have to change the nib out for some reason, which, to be honest, all of these types of tablets come with all these replacement nibs, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know why you would need to do that. Maybe if you step on it or drop it or something, I don't know. So the Huion pen, as I said before, has 3 customizable buttons. I have mine set up for a menu option if you push the little button here, and the menu option has 6 options that you can customize for that, which was really nice because some of the other pens that I've seen just have 2 buttons, and I usually do right click and Control Z because those are the shortcuts that I use the most. But this one having the 3rd option with the little mini menu that also pops up was just really nice, really convenient. So right now I just have 4 of the little options set up in the extra menu, which is hide selection, brush, eraser, and Control D, which is what I do to unselect something. And again, you can go in and click some different options, or you can have it set for a keystroke, which I think I did a keystroke for all of these. And then you can name the command. So like, for instance, I have one that's hide selection, which is Control H on the Windows Photoshop, and I was able to rename it rather than just seeing Control H. It just was kind of convenient that way. Or like B for brush, I can actually go in and name it, which I tend to forget these kinds of things, especially if it's been a while since I've drawn digitally, because I don't draw digitally that often, so having names for things is convenient for me to remember it and be able to come back and not have to re-figure out how I set it up. I tend to also put little labels next to the buttons because I just forget which button does what, so it's just easier for me to put little labels next to them. But I just used a little piece of washi tape, wrote what it did, and it just made things a lot easier for me. So now to talk about the tablet itself. No complaints from me. It was a very nice tablet. It was a very nice drawing experience. The pressure sensitivity was really great. It felt very similar to drawing on traditional medium to me. The screen texture is it's hard to explain because it doesn't necessarily feel like paper, but it definitely doesn't feel like glass either. And it feels a lot more similar to paper than your regular kind of screen. It's also very matte. It's not too shiny, which again kind of makes it feel more like drawing traditionally. I like the color range that it has, and I like just the overall texture of the screen. Makes it a lot easier to go from traditional to digital on this tablet. Because I personally have a lot of trouble with digital art. It's very hard for me to translate what I know from traditional mediums into digital. I feel like I have to rewire my brain every time I switch back and forth, and I have a hard time figuring out how to approach digital art, because if I approach it the same way that I do digital, it just does not work. Because traditional art, I tend to do really messy sketches and rely on blending and stuff to kind of sculpt it into what I want it to look like, whereas you really can't do that digitally unless you actually know what you're doing, because there's some artists out there that can make it look like an oil painting, or just chuck lots of colors on there and it just looks beautiful, and kind of sculpt it out of a blobby shape into a beautiful drawing. I am not able to do that yet, so I have to rely on fairly clean line art with coloring and rendering kind of added on top of that, which is just not how I approach traditional art most of the time. So that's just something that I'm still learning to do, but with this tablet, it did help bridge the gap a little bit for me personally. So as you can see here, the pressure sensitivity was really nice. It's very receptive to however hard or soft you push on it, which, to be honest, I didn't know Photoshop had pressure sensitivity before this. I don't really remember how much my Surface Pro pen worked with it, but definitely not like this. I was amazed. So I do have an iPad, but I kind of hate drawing on it, and I hate the feeling of the glass and is the tip rubbery? I hate the feeling of it, but I like the pressure sensitivity that you have in Procreate, and I was never able to get that in Photoshop. Photoshop had the round brush, and it had all the brushes, but they were just round, so no matter how hard you pushed, it was always the same size. When I plugged in this tablet, all of my brushes changed. So I don't know if I was doing it wrong before that, but they automatically switched to work with the pressure sensitivity of the Huion tablet, and it was wonderful, because to be able to have the pressure sensitivity just makes a world of difference, because without it, it was just so hard for me to draw without being able to rely on line weight and how hard I pushed, because that's just such a large part of traditional art. So to not have it with digital was really difficult. So full marks on that one for this tablet. The pressure sensitivity was really great for me, very natural, and it worked well with all of the brushes that I had. And pretty much all the brushes that I have are just from the free Adobe library. Most of them are the Kyle brushes, or if you have a Photoshop subscription or an Adobe subscription, you can just go into Adobe and search brushes, and then they have brush packs that you can download. So a lot of them are just from that, and I've had a lot of them for a long time, so I'm not sure 100% where I got them from, to be completely honest, because some of them I got over 5 years ago, so I just genuinely don't remember where they came from. But yeah, so I really liked the pressure sensitivity on this pen. And like I said, my Surface Pro might have been able to do it before, but it wasn't. So I've always had issues with the Surface Pro pen, which is another reason I was complaining. The eraser never really worked. It's supposed to have an eraser feature when you turn it around. It did not work. And the pen itself just was kind of finicky and didn't always work. So could have been an issue with Photoshop, could have been an issue with my Surface Pro, but the problem was solved when I plugged it into the Kamvas 16 Gen 3. So I was very happy about that. So here you can see I tend to do a messy sketch and then another messy sketch on top of it, and then sometimes another messy sketch on top of that one, and then I do line art. But line art really isn't my strong point. I don't like doing clean line art. I'm not good at it, which is one reason I don't do digital all that often, because you kind of need to know how to do line art, and I just am not good at it. So that's one thing I'm getting used to the more that I try to do digital art. So for coloring, I find it easiest to just use the lasso tool. I just lasso in all of the areas where the line art is, and then I use the paint bucket usually to kind of just drop colors in. So there's not a whole lot to explain here, as I am not an expert at all. I'd make things up as I go most of the time, and like I said before in my last video, I don't tend to watch tutorials, which can be a problem when it comes to digital art, because all of these programs have so many little ins and outs and different things and different techniques that you kind of need to know, and I just don't know them because I don't like watching tutorials, which I have caved sometimes, and I'll watch tutorials tutorials, but I tend to just watch like the 15-second reels and I'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and then I'll try to mimic it, and sometimes I can figure it out, sometimes I can't. But that's one reason my digital art kind of looks drastically different every time I try to do it, because I don't really have one set way of doing it. I just kind of pretend that I know how to do it every time until I have something that's sort of a finished product. So, you know, I'm still learning. And a lot of times, as with my traditional art, my drawings do not look great halfway through, and I'm like, uh-oh, I have made a mistake. I don't know what I'm doing because this does not look right. But luckily with digital, you know, can always add more layers, and that is what I do, because as far as I know, Photoshop has pretty much unlimited layers, which does make it lag more, but I really didn't have any issues, especially with this drawing. I had no issues with lagging. With the windbreaker drawing that I mentioned before, I did have some issues, but only after I'd been using the tablet. I had it on for like 10 hours straight and I had some issues, so then I turned it off like overnight and it was fine the next day. So again, that was probably my fault for overheating my computer. I'm pretty sure is what caused the issue. So, because my computer fan is always on, so I never really know when it's actually overheating, which is not great, but I need to get a desktop. I really do. But for now, my Surface Pro will live on, I hope. So a lot of the issues that I may have had, or slowness or lagging or anything, was probably because my computer was full. But it worked pretty well considering my computer was down to like 6 gigs for a lot of this drawing. I only had like 6 gigs left, but I didn't have any lagging and I didn't have any issues with Photoshop doing weird stuff on the tablet. So that was great. It worked very well. So as you can see here, I am just kind of trying out different things. I used a round brush for most of this, and then there's a canvas brush. I'll see if I can find it. If I can find where I got the brush, I'll add a link. I know it was a Photoshop, like Adobe brush, but I don't know if I can find the exact one that I got because it was a long time ago that I downloaded it. So if I find it, I'll add a link in the description, but if I don't, I am sorry. So yeah, this is really me just kind of experimenting with it. And as you can see, it's just a very smooth process of drawing on this tablet. I really liked it. It's definitely the nicest tablet that I have used so far. It is the most expensive, but I really liked it. I really liked it a lot. As far as the tablet size goes, I liked the size of this one. I'll put the dimensions on the screen, but it's a little large to travel with. I would find it a bit difficult to take it around with me, especially because it wouldn't fit in like a normal computer case, so I'd be kind of afraid of messing it up. Plus, along with the power cord and the cord that plugs into your computers, it's just kind of a lot to travel with. So I would not say this is the most travel-friendly tablet, but that's not to say you couldn't travel with it. I just personally would kind of avoid it. The screen is not the largest I've seen, and it's also not the smallest, so it's a nice middle ground and makes working on Photoshop pretty easy. Nice to see the whole screen while also not taking up like my entire desk, because some tablets that they make these days are just so large that like you have to have a really big desk to be able to use it, especially when it plugs into your computer. Now I just leave it set up on my table, so I like the size of this one, the kind of middle ground size. Also, the graphics themselves on this computer were really nice. I didn't have any issues with thinking that it looked blurry or anything like that. It just looked very clear, very crisp, very nice screen, very high quality. But yeah, so my overall review of this tablet is that it's a very nice tablet. It feels expensive. It is expensive. Like, it does exactly what you want it to do. The only thing that was a little weird was the zoom scroll. Like, it would... I think partially if you don't have your cursor on the screen, it doesn't know where to zoom into, because it will zoom into wherever your cursor's at instead of just like in general zooming in the entire window. It'll like focus in on a specific point, but because it does that, it kind of moves the screen up and down a little bit, which wasn't bad, but it just took me a little bit to get used to. It was just a little weird to me, but other than that, I really didn't have any issues with it. And I did really like having both of the scroll options, because that way I wouldn't have to constantly be switching between the zoom and the brush. I could leave one for brush and one for zoom, which was just a lot more convenient. It's not like you have to have that, but it just made things a lot more convenient and saved me some time, which goodness knows I needed to do because I am so slow at digital art. This drawing took me a long time to finish, and it's really not that elaborate, but I'm just very slow, and I sit there and I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing, so I spend a lot of time just kind of undoing stuff that did not look good. So, you know, hopefully the more I do it, the less time it will take me, but I mean, I still take forever for traditional sketches too. I'm just very trial and error oriented, so it tends to make me take very long when I sketch. So, But as you can see here, this is what it looks like plugged into my computer. I just have my computer sitting right next to it with the USB-C cord plugged into the right side of the tablet. One cable goes to the power. There's a chance you could power it with just the computer display. I wouldn't really recommend it because this tablet is definitely heftier than some other tablets because it's fancier. So I do think it's gonna run smoother if you have the external power source plugged into the wall as well. Size-wise, here you can see it compared to a haiku manga, which, you know, may not help you if you're not from the US like me, because I know they're kind of sized differently depending on what language they're in or what country they're in. Hopefully it'll give you an idea, and then I put my hand next to it, which again isn't super helpful because you don't know how big my hand is, but just to kind of show you how big it is compared to like my normal sketchbooks that I work with. So just as a little side note from the tablet, I have been making some of my digital arts into stickers. Recently I did the Kuro sticker, and I will be making a Kenma one very soon, so stay tuned for that. But if you want a little haiku sticker, I am probably going to be starting a Patreon either very soon this month or next month, and I'm going to be having some different tiers that include goodie bundles, and the first theme for the goodie bundle will most likely be haiku, so look forward to that if you are a haiku fan. So it just felt necessary with summer coming. If you have any questions about this tablet, you can ask them in the comments section. I'll answer as many as I can, hopefully. I used this enough to be able to answer any questions that you might have because I liked this tablet a lot. It was a very pleasant experience to use. And like I said, to get it set up, I did have some issues, but once I got those resolved, didn't have any issues after that. So thank you so much for watching, and in the upcoming weeks, I'm hoping to be able to get some color videos out because lots of people were requesting it, which I am excited about because I like doing color, and my color stuff doesn't do so good on Instagram, but people seem to like it here on YouTube, so I will be doing some things with markers. I also am potentially learning to oil paint this month for something, so we'll see how that goes because I do not currently know how to oil paint, but yeah, I'm gonna be learning for reasons, but we'll find out later how that ends up. But yes, and if you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.